On my best friend's wedding day, I discovered the bride sobbing in a silent chapel corridor. Haunted by memories of her dangerous affair, I faced her brother's fury, then interrupted her fiancé's vows to reveal the secret. In the aftermath, we chose honesty and freedom. I froze the moment I heard the soft, broken sobs echoing down the aisle. My name is Emma Walters. I'm 29, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I'd slipped away from the bridesmaids' chatter to catch my breath before Lily's ceremony. The chapel corridor was deserted, its polished floor reflecting pale morning light, and I thought I'd have a private moment until I heard her crying. My heart hammered as I crept forward, past rows of wooden pews and flickering sconces, guided only by the sound. There, pressed against the wall, was Lily, her ivory gown sweeping the floor, her back trembling and her dark curls loose around her shoulders. Tears streamed down her cheeks, carving bright trails through her foundation. "Lily," I whispered, stepping into the dim glow. The word felt too loud in that hush. She didn't answer. Her hand clutched at her throat as if she was fighting for air. I knelt beside her, careful not to touch the delicate fabric of her dress. Her eyes, usually so radiant, were glassy and unfocused. "What's wrong?" I asked softly, voice barely more than a breath. She shook her head, her lips parting and closing without sound. I reached out, brushing a lock of hair away from her face. The day was supposed to be perfect. Sunlight on stained glass, the scent of lilies drifting on the air, her fiancé waiting at the altar. Instead, I found her here, alone and undone. My mind raced. Just hours ago, Lily had been all smiles, helping me with my speech, fussing over every detail of her bouquet. Now she looked like she was losing herself. I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming that something was very, very wrong. "I'm here," I said, pressing my hand to her shoulder. "Talk to me." Her shoulders shook harder and she sank to the floor, pressing her face against the wall. My breath caught. I wanted to call for help, but didn't want anyone to see her like this, least of all her maid of honor. It felt like a lifetime before Lily finally lifted her head. Her eyes met mine, glistening with fear and regret. She opened her mouth, then closed it again without a word. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. My chest tightened. I'd known Lily since freshman year of college, best friends bound by late-night study sessions and wild road trips. We'd shared everything, except whatever it was that dragged her to tears today. My fingers trembled as I reached for her hand. In that instant, I realized I was standing at the edge of a secret that could ruin her wedding, my friendship, even our futures. I helped her to her feet, her hand cold in mine. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, and my heart ached with helplessness. As we headed back toward the suite, the echoes of her sobs faded behind us, but the questions in my mind only grew louder. What could be so devastating that Lily, the bride glowing with happiness, would break down before she ever said "I do"? I swallowed past the lump in my throat, bracing myself for what I might have to uncover next. I cracked the cork so hard my hand shook. Champagne bubbled up in the flute as I slipped it into Lily's trembling fingers. We'd retreated to the bridal suite, a hush-lit room hung with pale roses and mirrors gilded like wedding gifts. Outside the door, bridesmaids flitted in silk robes, straightening skirts and adjusting bouquets, while down the hall her fiancé, David, paced in a perfectly pressed suit, oblivious to the storm brewing inside. "Here," I murmured, guiding Lily onto a chaise longue. Her makeup was streaked, but I pressed a tissue into her hand and took a steadying breath. "One sip, it'll calm you." She glanced at me, eyes still red, and forced herself to lift the glass. The bubbly liquid trembled as she swallowed. I watched, heart thudding, as color returned to her cheeks in shallow waves. They told me to keep her laughing, distract her with silly stories. "Remember that time you tried to salsa dance in April?" But all I could think about was the secret she'd begged me to bury. Flashbacks sprang unbidden. Lily at midnight in our cramped dorm, voice quivering as she confessed everything. Her affair, the danger she'd courted, the lie that could destroy her world if it ever surfaced. I exhaled, leaning forward. "Hey," I said softly, brushing her hair back. "You'll be beautiful up there." The bridesmaids knocked and peered inside, whispering behind polite smiles, "You okay?" "Just a minute." I plastered on a grin and assured them she'd return shortly. They drifted away, leaving us alone in a pocket of quiet. Lily's breathing was ragged. She stared at the bubble rising in her glass. "Emma," she whispered, voice distant, "why can't I feel happy?" My chest tightened. I'd rehearsed what to say if she panicked. Reassure her it was normal, keep her calm, but lying felt like betrayal now. I perched on the edge of the chaise, toes curled against the carpet. "Because weddings are scary," I lied. "You're committing to forever. It's okay to be terrified." She nodded but didn't meet my eyes. A strand of her dark hair fell across her cheek, and I wanted to push it away, cradle her head, tell her everything would be fine. But I couldn't say why she was crying. My promise to her from 2 years ago echoed in my mind, heavy and unbreakable. Her hand slipped from the glass, and champagne spilled onto the chaise, a glittering stain on white silk. I stood and grabbed a towel, mopping the spill while trying to steady my mind. The muffled click of David's shoes on the polished lobby floor made me panic. He'd be here soon, ready to whisk her away down the aisle. I handed Lily the towel and met her gaze in the mirror. "You want the truth?" I asked, voice low enough only she could hear. She blinked, and for a second I thought she might tell me to stop, to let the lie live. But her nod was tiny, desperate. I swallowed, feeling the weight of every secret shared between us. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Lily's breath caught. I smoothed her veil, praying for a normal day, but my own heart beat like a warning drum. "You ready?" One bridesmaid called through the wood. I stood, straightened my shoulders, and offered Lily my arm. Her fingers closed around mine like a lifeline. As we stepped into the hallway, my mind raced through every memory we'd made and every dark promise I'd made to keep hers. And I knew the moment we rejoined the party, the secret would press against me, begging to burst free. I still remember the night she confided in me, like a secret whispered in the dark. It was 2 years ago, in our cramped college dorm at the University of South Carolina, long after everyone else had gone to bed. I was tucked under my comforter, half listening to a podcast, when Lily burst through my door, eyes wild and voice shaking. She slammed the door behind her, and I sat up, heart racing. "Emma," she gasped as if she'd run a mile. "I need to tell you something." I patted the mattress beside me, but she didn't sit. Instead, she paced in circles, her fingers twisting the strap of her tank top. "Okay," I said softly. "What's wrong?" Her eyes darted to the window, then back to me. It's about Mark." My breath caught. Mark was a senior, gorgeous and dangerous, with a reputation that made my stomach flip. We've been seeing each other." I blinked. "But he's your lab partner's ex, and you've said he was." She cut me off. I know, but it started harmlessly. One coffee study session, then late-night drives. "Emma, Her voice cracked, and she sank onto my bed, face hidden in her hands. I sank beside her. Slippery silence between us. "Lily, what happened?" She lifted her head, cheeks wet. "Wasn't clean. I wanted to break it off months ago, but he got obsessive." She swallowed. "He threatened to expose me, to ruin my scholarship, my reputation, everything. I lied, said we were fine, but he kept pushing. Last week, he got physical." She had to pause, and I held her, my heart pounding. "God," I whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" She shook her head. "I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it, but he sent messages to my phone. I emailed, saying he'd post photos, emails, anything to prove I cheated on David." She exhaled a shuddering breath. "I can't let that happen." My hands trembled in her hair. "You should have told me sooner. We could have gone to campus security." Her eyes, dark and desperate, met mine. "Please, Emma," she pleaded. "Promise me you won't say anything. David doesn't need to know. My family, everyone thinks I'm this perfect girl. If they knew." She trailed off, and I felt the weight of her fear settle between us. I kissed her hair and whispered, "I promise, no one will ever hear it from me." I meant it. I would protect her no matter what. But every promise carves a debt, and I just signed mine in blood. Back in the bridal suite, that memory felt like a lead weight on my chest. I could still hear Lily's trembling voice, see the raw terror in her eyes as she begged me to stay silent. I'd given her my word, my unbreakable vow of secrecy, and for 2 years I'd held it, until today. A sudden knock rattled the suite door, yanking me from the past. My pulse thrummed in my ears. The bridesmaid's voice floated through. "Emma, Lily's waiting." I glanced at Lily, her face pale beneath her veil. The secret between us pulsed, a silent heartbeat that refused to fade. I rose, smoothing the front of my dress. I would keep my promise. I had to. But as I crossed toward the door, my hand hovering on the handle, a cold question slithered through my mind. How long before the secret crushed us both? I exhaled and opened the door. Dialogue and laughter flooded in, unaware that behind us, a storm was about to break. I follow Lily onto the balcony, and the humid Charleston air feels like a confession waiting to happen. Moonlight pools on the wooden planks, and the distant hum of the reception drifts faintly through the open doors. Lily stands at the railing, her shoulders hunched as if she's carrying the weight of the world in her bridal gown. I stay a few paces back, heart twisting, debating whether to breach the silence. The secret she entrusted me with 2 years ago coils through my mind like a serpent. Vivid images of Mark's threats, her tears, my solemn vow to keep it hidden. Every memory crashes over me. Lily's pleading voice in our dorm room, the fear in her eyes when she confessed she'd never been free of him, my trembling promise to protect her at all costs. But now, in this pale glow, that promise feels like a noose, tightening around my conscience. I watch her fingers trace the ornate balustrade, nails pressed into wood, knuckles white. Behind her, the chapel lights glow like a false promise of joy. "Emma," Lily murmurs without turning, her voice is fragile, as though even speaking might shatter her. "Do you think I'm making a mistake?" My throat goes dry. Am I supposed to reassure her that everything will be fine? Because I can't lie again. My tongue trembles at the thought. I swallow. "I don't know," I admit. Silence stretches. I picture David's hopeful smile, the guests waiting to celebrate, the moment she's dreamed of since childhood. And I imagine the horror if Mark's lies were dragged into the light. Scandals splashed across tabloids, families torn apart, Lily's carefully built life crumbling like chalk. Fear spikes through me. Not just for Lily's future, but for our friendship. Am I more bound to my vow of secrecy, or to the truth that could save her from reignited terror? Lily's shoulders heave with an unspoken plea. Don't break your promise. Yet every second I hesitate, I betray the part of me that wants to protect her from harm. I step forward, voice low. "I need to know, what scares you more? Facing him if he shows up, or losing David and your family's trust if you tell them everything. She closes her eyes, lips parting in a silent tremor. In that instant, I see her fear reflected in my own. My pulse hammers as the gulf between loyalty and duty yaws open. Lily turns, her eyes glistening under the lantern light. I brace myself, ready to choose. The air crackles with possibility and dread, and I know, whatever I decide on this balcony tonight will test the bonds of love and loyalty and could shatter them forever. I froze at the sound of the balcony door slamming open. Lily's brother, Owen, stood in the golden lamplight, shoulders rigid, face pale with fury. His hand was Owen's phone, screen lit with web searches and tabloid feeds spilling Lily's name in bold headlines. "Emma," he hissed, voice low and dangerous. "What the hell is going on?" My mouth went dry, my pulse thundered in my ears. Owen's eyes blazed as he advanced, clutching the phone like a weapon. "I found it," he spat. "Someone's been digging up Lily's past, stories about Mark, threats, the works. You knew, didn't you?" He jabbed a finger at me, fingers shaking. "Her maid of honor. You promised to protect her. But I see you've been sitting on this all day while you let her break down in front of God and everyone." Lily shrank back, her veil brushing the floor. She looked at me with terror and accusation mixed in her eyes. My heart tore itself in two. I wanted to scream that I'd kept her secret, that I'd only tried to shield her, but Owen's glare stopped me. His voice dropped to a hiss. "David deserved to walk into this blind. Do Mom and Dad deserve to be blindsided at the altar?" The breeze rustled the roses at our feet, sent drifting around us like a warning. Owen's phone buzzed, another notification, proof someone was collecting dirt on Lily. I swallowed hard, chest burning with guilt. Lily's trembling hand found mine, fingers tight like a lifeline. I met Owen's stare and saw his jaw clench. I started, voice brittle. Owen's lip curled. He raised an eyebrow and leaned closer. "Say it." My mind raced through fractured memories. Lily's midnight confession, my vow to her, my fear of betraying her trust. But now I realized the secret might already have leaked. If I stayed silent, I'd let Lily face the fallout alone. Owen's brotherly anger thrummed in the air. Lily's shoulders shook as she watched me. I took a step forward, the weight of every promise pressing on me like stones. In that moment, I knew silence was no longer an option. Secret was loose, crawling into the light on Owen's phone. My breath caught. I had to speak before Owen or the world did. "Tell them yourself," Owen sneered, turning to my best friend. "Or I will." He shoved the phone toward Lily, fury coiling in his stance. "Make your choice, Emma," he said, voice low and fierce. "Are you going to stand with your friend or with the truth?" My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. Lily's eyes toward mine, pleading, terrified, waiting. The moment of truth had arrived. I swallowed, tilting my chin up. And then I spoke. The moment the organ swells, my blood runs cold. I'm kneeling at the altar as Lily's fiancé, David, begins his vows, soft light catching the gold embroidery on his cuff. My heart pounds like a war drum as I watch him raise his head, voice steady. "I, David Marshall, take you, Lily Edwards." Each word slices through me, reminding me how close we're all to a perfect lie. Behind me, the bridesmaids and family lean forward, expectant smiles in place. The aisle is lined with petals, the chapel buzzes with hopeful energy. And I know that in seconds I'll rip it all apart. Just as David says, to cherish and protect, something in me snaps. I stand, voice trembling so loud I surprise myself. "Stop." Silence crashes down. David's eyes widen as I step forward onto the aisle, white taffeta brushing past. I hear Lily gasp behind me. Guests shift in their seats, the pastor blinks in confusion. My throat feels raw. I draw in a shaking breath, every eye in the chapel on me. "I have to say something," I whisper, then louder. "I can't let you marry Lily without knowing the truth." A ripple of gasps rolls through the congregation. David's jaw slackens. Lily's cheeks go pale, tears glint at the corners of her eyes. I turn toward her, voice cracking. 2 years ago, Lily was involved with someone dangerous, Mark. A hush falls so thick I can hear my own pulse. Few guests murmur Mark's name, recognition sparking in whispered questions. I glance at Lily's family. Her brother's fists clench so tight, his knuckles are white. My heart twists, but I press on. "She didn't end it cleanly," I say, pain breaking my voice. "He threatened her, stalked her, even assaulted her. She begged me to keep it secret because she was ashamed. But I can't keep it hidden any longer." The words hang in the air, heavy as funeral wreaths. I look at David, face drained of color. "You deserve to know who you're promising your life to." David's lips quiver. He takes a step back as Lily rises from her kneeling position, the gown rustling like paper in the stillness. She meets my gaze, betrayal, relief, and fear mingled in her eyes. I swallow against the lump in my throat. "I'm so sorry I waited," I say. I tried to protect her, but the truth is stronger than any promise. Lily's voice, barely more than a whisper, breaks the silence. "Emma!" Tears spill down her cheeks in bright streams. Gasps flutter through the guests like panicked birds. David closes his eyes, pressing a hand to his forehead as if to steady himself. The pastor's mouth hangs open. The bridesmaids stare in stunned silence. A sudden creak echoes as the chapel door opens, and the hush deepens even more. Outside, the world waits. Inside, our fairy tale unravels. I lower my gaze to the scattered rose petals beneath my shoes, heart hammering in my ears. I catch Lily's brother's eye. His expression is unreadable, a silent judge and jury. I swallow, voice soft and tremulous. I did it for her because I love her. The confession feels both too little and too much. Time stretches, breath holds. The chapel, once a picture of pristine joy, stands frozen in a cathedral of shattered vows. And in that suspended moment, I wonder, have I destroyed everything or finally set us free? Gasps gave way to whispers and whispers to chaos. The ceremony never resumed. Guests stood in clusters, hushed and murmuring, some in shock, others eager to dissect every word I had said. Phones were already out, scrolling, snapping, speculating. The fairy tale wedding had shattered like crystal on marble, and I stood at the center of the wreckage. David had stepped back from the altar in stunned silence, his hands clenched at his sides. Now he stood with Lily near the pews, his voice low but hard. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, not angry, just stunned, as though trying to put the pieces together mid-collapse. Lily, veil clutched in one hand, her mascara streaking like ink down her cheeks, could barely speak. "I was scared," she whispered, "of what you'd think, of how it would change everything." "And it did," he said softly, stepping away. My heart cracked watching them, knowing I'd been the one to strike the match, even if I hadn't lit the fire. I hovered by the edge of the aisle, unsure where I belonged anymore. Then Lily's mother's voice pierced the room. "How long did you know?" Her glare pinned me. "How long did you know and say nothing?" I opened my mouth, but no answer would satisfy. Owen stood a few steps behind her, arms folded, jaw set. His eyes flicked to me, unreadable, somewhere between gratitude and accusation. The betrayal in the room wasn't simple. It branched like lightning, wild, unpredictable, burning everyone it touched. The photographers, once hired to capture joy, now clicked through lenses like vultures circling wreckage. I turned away from their flashes, nausea rising in my throat. I hadn't imagined this moment, not this way. I found Lily sitting alone on a pew at the back of the chapel, bouquet discarded like an afterthought beside her. I moved toward her hesitantly. "Lily," she looked up at me. Voice was thin. "You said it for me, didn't you?" Her eyes searched mine. "I did," I whispered, "because I couldn't watch you break under the weight of it anymore." She nodded slowly, like she already knew that, but knowing didn't make it easier to bear. "I thought keeping it buried would let me move on." "I know," I said, "but secrets don't stay buried, they rot." She gave a small, broken laugh. "Well, now everyone knows, and I'm not married, so congratulations." The sarcasm in her voice stung, but behind it was pain. I sat down beside her, leaving space between us. "I didn't want to ruin your life." "You didn't," she murmured after a pause. "Mark did. I just tried too hard to pretend otherwise." Silence fell between us. Outside, guests were beginning to leave, some casting glances back at the chapel like they might miss more drama. From the front, I could hear Lily's father arguing with the pastor, the words muffled but sharp. David had disappeared. Whether to think, to run, or to never return, I didn't know. Lily finally reached over, touching my hand. Her fingers trembled. "You were the only one brave enough to do what I couldn't," she said quietly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it wasn't blame either. The cost of truth had been high, devastation, humiliation, broken dreams. And yet, in the ruins of the day we'd planned for years, I felt something solid settling beneath the rubble. Not peace, exactly, but maybe clarity. Truth had shattered the illusion. Now we would see what was real enough to rebuild. I found Lily in the empty chapel, suitcase open on a worn pew. Moonlight filtered through the stained glass, painting shards of color across the floor. The chairs were stacked, petals swept away, and the air smelled of lavender-scented candles still burning low. Lily knelt beside the pew, stuffing dresses and shoes into her bag. Each item, a memory she was ready to leave behind. Her shoulders shook as she zipped the case closed. "I'm sorry," I said, voice barely louder than a whisper. My reflection danced in a shattered mirror behind her, two ghosts amid the ruins of what should have been her happiest day. She didn't look at me, but her breath hitched when I reached out to touch her arm. "I can't stay," she said, tone hollow. "Not here, not like this." She pulled on the handle, but it caught on the pew, and she stopped, tears spilling over. We'd never been so quiet together. I knelt beside her, heart pounding against the silence. "You don't have to go alone," I offered, voice trembling. "Let me come with you." She looked at me then, eyes red but strong. "Emma, you have your life here," she said. "Your friends, your family," she swallowed. "I can't ask you to give that up." My throat tightened. "You're my best friend," I said. "I asked you to trust me with your darkest secret. Please, let me help you face whatever comes next." She closed her eyes, fighting back sobs. "I don't know what comes next," she admitted. "I lost everything today, my fiancé, my family's trust." She trailed off, voice cracking. "I'm terrified of what Mark might do if I leave town." An icy knot clenched my stomach at the mention of him. "He won't find you," I vowed. "I'll help you get away from him, from all of this." Lily exhales a shaky laugh. "Even after everything." She blinked back tears. "You'd still stand by me?" I slid my suitcase beside hers. "I promised I'd protect you," I reminded her gently. "Not just from him, but from shame, from secrets. I'm not turning back now." She reached out, brushing my cheek, and I felt the fragile tremor beneath her fingers. "You risked your life, no, our lives, for the truth," she said softly. "I'd follow you anywhere." I unzipped her suitcase and pulled out her wedding veil, now creased and torn at the edge. I draped it over my arm, a silent promise to carry both her pain and her hope. "You're not running from the past," I said. "You're running toward freedom." She stood, wrapping her arms around me, head resting against my shoulder. The chapel bell, long silent, echoed in the courtyard, a soft, distant chime like a heartbeat beginning again. I held her tighter, aware of every breath, every tremor. Outside, the future waited uncertain and wide open. No fairy tale awaited us, only the raw world beyond these doors, where honesty and courage would have to guide us. When she finally pulled back, her eyes shone with tears and something else, determination. "Let's go," she whispered. And as we stepped through the chapel doors together, I realized that truth had nearly destroyed us, but it had also set us free.